call it the Just One Person campaign. That's what my wife said to me after I described my interactions with a woman on our block who had been homeless. Let me give you a little background. Like so many of us, I had encountered this new neighbor more than once on walks in the neighborhood, especially in the early evenings. She would come, sit on a ledge on the corner of the block where we live, and sit quietly, eating a small amount of food, doing a little reading, and then she would place a blanket, a worn blanket over her head so that she couldn't see into the outside world and the outside world couldn't look in. And there it appeared she slept, sitting up on my block. After walking by her more than once, more times than I would care to admit, I decided to change all that. And I began to take up conversations with her. First, I offered her a couple of oranges that I'd recently bought. That led to 2 or 3 more interactions. I asked her about her background, and she told me that she had been born and raised in Africa, that she had studied law, and in fact, she had practiced law in Texas. But she'd got into an abusive relationship. I didn't ask much about the details, and one bad thing led to another. She fled to California, and not long thereafter, she found herself on the street. I asked her one day if she wanted help. At first she was reluctant, as you might understand, since we hardly knew each other. But we began to speak further. She asked me what I did for a living. I gave her my business card. And at that point, she began to get some interest in finding a way to get some assistance. She said she trusted me, but she said, "Don't put me in a shelter on Skid Row. I've been there. As a single woman, it was dangerous for me. I'm not going back." I said to her, "What if we could find an alternative for you?" She appeared interested, but that required some complicated logistics because my new friend, Anne, is homeless. She has no phone, no address. But we figured out the logistics. We would identify a corner of a parking lot where she would agree to be 2 days later at an appointed time. And I, working with my staff, would connect with a social worker who would come to that location with her description. Well, that day came, and that evening, I came home and walked to the corner, and there Anne was, and she was delighted. She said the outreach worker had treated her with great respect, and she was, for the first time in a long time, optimistic. A couple days later, she was delighted when she reported to me that the worker had told her that he could find a place for her. I found out where that was going to be. I sent her a note from just to offer her some encouragement, and then I didn't see her again until one day, perhaps 5 weeks ago. I received an email. The email said in the subject line, "Reactivation." The topic of the email was Anne had gotten reactivated as a member of the Texas bar. She was interested in studying for the California bar, and she asked me for advice about how she might start her own law firm. All this from being offered a place to live, some shelter, and her life was suddenly turning around. There's an old proverb that says, if you treat the person next to you as though they are the Messiah, simply waiting for some simple act of human kindness, you'll weigh your words and you'll watch your hands. And if it turns out that person is not the Messiah, it won't matter. What if each of us were to take just a moment and, when it comes to homelessness in particular, find just one person to reach out to in the new year? I want to share with you a little bit more about what my office, the City Attorney's Office, does with regard to homelessness. I'm Mike Feuer. I am the City Attorney. In our office, we've gone to lengths never before undertaken by an office like ours. We have an exceptional array of programs designed to assist our homeless neighbors, and I want to give you just a couple examples to give you a sense of what's possible at a time when each of us has to go far beyond where we've ever gone before to try to improve this crisis on our streets. We have a marvelous program called LA Door. It's very unusual for a prosecutor's office like ours to have sought and obtained a state grant with which we send mobile teams of outreach workers, mental health experts, substance abuse case workers, and others to the streets. We go to locations where there are a number of homeless people and where the police report there have been a number of crimes in the past relating to substance abuse. And we identify people before they ever enter the justice system to try to intervene with them, to get them connected to legal services or job training or a place to live. One of the most extraordinary aspects of this program is our ability to take people often grappling with serious substance abuse issues and get them housed in locations in Los Angeles through a partnership we have with a major Los Angeles church and a nonprofit, and I've been to one of those locations. It's quite something to see people who have come off the street suddenly proud to be housed and to be appreciated, to be respected, to feel that they matter, perhaps for the first time in years. At first, this program was making initial strides, and then it got complicated because the population we're grappling with often have very serious problems. The people I encountered on my first visit to one of our housing locations didn't remain there. They couldn't stay sober and stay in the house. But we've learned from our experience. We've intensified our substance abuse training, our support for those who are housed. And now this program is showing tremendous promise, not just here in Los Angeles, but as a leading project in the state of California. We complement that program with another project called HEART. HEART is our homeless assistance program for individuals who are confronting fines and citations and penalties that are preventing them from getting a place to live or social services or a job. We offer them the opportunity to perform some basic community service, typically in the location of a homeless services provider from whom the individual will benefit. We say that we'll erase those citations and fines and warrants if they perform that obligation, if they connect with an organization that's going to provide them with some help. Sometimes the clinics that we perform with this program offer other kinds of services, from haircuts to substance abuse testing, to hepatitis A vaccines, to fresh fruit, to getting just cleaned up when you come off the street. This program was designed to help a few hundred people a year through 6 clinics a year. After the first 3 years, it held more than 68 such clinics and helped more than 2,000 people. It's just another example of what we're engaged in my office. Another aspect of our work about which Angelenos care deeply is assuring that homeless people aren't improperly discharged to the streets from medical facilities. We recently teamed up with the Southern California Hospital Association, and we held a symposium attended by more than 200 representatives of medical facilities throughout Southern California, working together to create protocols in those facilities to assure that no homeless patient is ever discharged to the street, and instead given the opportunity that all of us would want, to be taken from a hospital to a setting where we can recuperate with dignity. I mention these programs because I want to highlight the fact that at this moment in our city's history, each of us, whether we run an organization or simply live in a neighborhood, have to rise to the challenge of contending with what is a citywide challenge that we can resolve if we work together. I go to neighborhoods throughout Los Angeles and ask a key question of residents and business owners. Who here will commit to be a champion for the siting of homeless services and housing in this community? Talking about identifying an appropriate location in a city council district, maybe 2 or 3 such locations, where we can find a place for people who live in their cars to sleep safely at night, for people who have no place to live to safely store their goods, and for people looking for a safe location to sleep in the evening to have temporary housing. We need to rise to the challenge by saying yes. Yes, we will work to assure that all of us in a city that has so much abundance, so much wealth, and such a depth of caring will reach out to those who have less than we do and assure that the day comes not in the too distant future where what is now a homelessness crisis in Los Angeles has turned into one of the city's great successes. Won't you join me, even if it constitutes just helping one person at a time? Thanks for listening.